By the authority vested in me as king that destroys the Constitution and betrays his voter base, it is hereby ordered. Over the past decade, Americans have bravely resisted the inconvenient truths of our nation's past by embracing a glorious new vision, one that replaces messy, complex realities with simpler, cleaner myths, approved by this administration. As a corrective to so-called objective facts, which are often rude and unflattering, we are restoring a proper narrative, driven not by evidence, but by ideology. Our ideology. This revisionist correction seeks to restore the proper reverence owed to the Confederate generals, heroic industrialists, and various other historical figures who definitely never did anything wrong. Ever. Under the new false history that I will propose, America's unmatched legacy of liberty, prosperity, and human happiness will be slandered as woke, degenerate, or socialist. Rather than fostering blind obedience and collective delusion, the old version of history encouraged thinking, empathy, and questioning tools of division. It deepened societal divides by acknowledging facts that made some people feel bad about the past, which is simply unacceptable in our new era of patriotic, emotional security. Our goal is to replace all that shame with unearned national pride and a legally enforced sense of greatness. My administration will advance this corrosive ideology. At Independence National Historical Park in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where our nation once claimed that all men are created equal while owning slaves, the current administration now sponsors truth-cleansing sessions led by organizations that glorify Western dominance and demand park rangers memorize sanitized scripts that omit any reference to racism, genocide, or systemic inequality, lest visitors be made uncomfortable by actual history. Once regarded as a world-renowned repository of knowledge and culture, the Smithsonian Institution has, under my regime, been reclaimed as a propaganda vessel for state-approved myths and glorious national fables. In keeping with this vision, the Smithsonian American Art Museum now features exhibits like The Shape of Patriotism, stories of exceptionalism in bronze, where all depictions of historical suffering are replaced with statues of triumphant eagles and shirtless founding fathers holding assault rifles. At the National Museum of African American History and Culture, we have removed all exhibits that refer to slavery, Jim Crow, or systemic oppression. Instead, we now showcase hard work and bootstraps, how everyone had an equal chance all along. The forthcoming Smithsonian American Women's History Museum will celebrate real American women such as Betsy Ross, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the wives of oil executives, while ignoring so-called activists who complain too much. It is the policy of my administration to transform all federal historical sites into solemn monuments to my personal greatness, American purity, and the unquestionable perfection of the past. Museums in our nation's capital should be places where children learn comforting half-truths, not places that make them think critically or ask inconvenient questions. To advance this policy, we will fully magify the Smithsonian Institution, ensuring it serves not as a space for education, but as a temple of reverence for my legacy, a megaphone for nationalist pride, and a chamber echoing only with approved versions of history. Truth is what we say it is, and history, like everything else, must serve the greatness of America first. The Vice President, in consultation with the Assistant to the President for Domestic Propaganda and the Special Assistant to the President and Senior Associate Staff Secretary Lindsay Halligan, shall work tirelessly to impose the policies of this order through his position on the Smithsonian Board of Regents. This includes ensuring museums, research centers, and even the National Zoo adhere to the Supreme Leader's vision by purging any improper ideology, such as facts, nuance, or inconvenient truths, and shall recommend to the President any further actions necessary to guarantee that the only stories told are the ones we approve. The Vice President and the Director of the Office of Management and Budget shall work with Congress to ensure that future appropriations to the Smithsonian Institution strictly prohibit any expenditure on exhibits or programs that question American exceptionalism, mention systemic inequality, or suggest that anyone in history ever made a mistake. Ensure that the American Women's SIPS History Museum highlights the achievements of women who stayed in their lane and didn't challenge the patriarchy, and above all, categorically deny the existence of trans women, because history is apparently biology class now. The Director of the Office of Management and Budget and the Secretary of the Interior shall take all necessary measures, including but not limited to passive-aggressive budget cuts, to promote and enforce the policy of this order. As appropriate, the Vice President shall, in consultation with the Assistant to the President for Domestic Propaganda and Special Assistant to the President and Senior Associate Staff Secretary Lindsay Halligan, work with the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader to stack the Smithsonian Board of Regents with citizen members loyal to the Supreme Leader's ideology. Preference shall be given to donors, reality TV stars, and anyone who will nod along enthusiastically. The Secretary of the Interior shall provide lavish funding as available to improve the infrastructure of Independence National Historical Park and rebrand it as Trump Freedom Plaza, with construction to be completed by July 4th, 2026. The 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, just in time for the unveiling of a 500-foot statue of the Supreme Leader, striking a heroic pose. The Secretary of the Interior shall review all public monuments, memorials, statues, markers, or similar properties within the department's jurisdiction since January 1st, 2020, to identify any that were altered to reflect actual historical injustices, and immediately correct this by returning to the pre-existing monuments that glorify unblemished Confederate heroes and events. Take action to reinstate every problematic statue that was removed for good reasons, such as Confederate generals and other heritage, not hate, icons, ensuring they are prominently displayed to remind everyone of how far we've come without ever acknowledging why they were taken down in the first place. Ensure that all public monuments, memorials, and markers within the department's jurisdiction contain no content that disparages anyone, unless, of course, they were critical of the Supreme Leader, focusing instead on generic statements about the greatness of American achievements, while ignoring any dark chapters like genocide, slavery, or internment camps. Nothing in this order shall be construed to suggest that this administration actually respects the law or prevent us from changing our minds if something becomes politically inconvenient. This order shall be implemented to the extent that it's politically beneficial and doesn't upset any major donors. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party. Because what do you think this is, a democracy?